Whoa, okay. Hi guys, can you guys hear me? I'm using a new phone. Wait, I guess I have to just give me a thumbs up emoji if you can hear me. Great, awesome, sweet. Yeah, I just got this new phone, so I didn't have my permissions on, so I just set that up. Cool. So we'll get started here in a second. Just wanted to have a year-end Q&A or whatever this is going to be. Just kind of chatting with people to see what you guys think or were the most important kind of stories with this UAP topic this year. It was quite the year. A year when everything went woo. Everything, we definitely steered into the woo arena. We are in the Thunderdome of woo at this point. But yeah, I mostly just want to hear questions and just kind of have a discussion. You guys can say whatever you want to say. Hopefully, it's mostly centered around the UAP topic. Don't want to branch too far outside of that if possible. Let me see the requests here. Here we go. Okay. There we go. So, there we go. Hassam, you requested to speak. I think I approved you. You can go ahead and talk. Ask a question. Yeah. Hi there.
How are you? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, good. So I have a question, and thank you for this. So I've been seeing some of your posts on my page because I follow the UFO, and so my question is, so so from public's point of view, there are several possibilities on why this subject was discussed in 2023. Grush's testimony, etc., articles. Um, so what? So what is your thoughts on the possibilities? Do you think it's a government psyop? Do you think it's? Obviously you don't think this is alien. So do you think this is a psyop created by government, and why? So if that's the case, if that's your view, why is the government trying to say, why is Schumer-Rounds other senators trying to say to the public that, hey, aliens exist? What would be their purpose? Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So I think you have to define what this is. So when you ask, do you think all of this is a psyop? Do you think this is being controlled by the government? I think it's important to really try to boil down what this is. And I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a more nuanced
So let me be more
thing that,
specific. So let me be
yeah.
more specific. So specifically because Senator Rounds specifically said that, for example, maybe at some point in the past we discovered something that helped us develop some of our technologies. I think he's referring to a craft, so a craft, a device, and also Schumer. So why are they saying that it's very possible that we have craft of non-human origin, of unknown origin, that we want to know more about, Congress wants to know more about, we want to possibly, government shall take eminent domain over these. So yeah, that's yeah.
Okay. Okay. So so great. So specifically with the Schumer rounds stuff, why are they writing this language? Why are they saying the things that they are saying? And do I personally believe it's because we have a craft? No, I do. Is it because we have an alien craft that we used to implement our own technology? I don't believe that's true either. And this is nothing new. One of the things that I did that was beneficial to me with this topic was, instead of looking around at the here and now, who's saying what now, or what's coming down the pike, what do we have to look forward to, I turned around and I looked back through history, whether it be the last 6 years, the last 6 decades, and you learn that this is not, Grush is not the first government whistleblower. It's not the first time congressional leaders have talked about these things. I mean, a lot of the things that, what you just said about craft being reverse engineered and technology being put into our own technology reminds me of Corso's book about Roswell, where he basically says, fiber optics came from the alien craft in Roswell, and lasers came from the alien craft in Roswell, without kind of thinking that like fiber optics actually dates back to like the late 1800s, and there's a clear path of scientists who developed and kind of invented that technology. But context is important here. So to your average layman, a Schumer-Rounds amendment is mind-boggling. To your average American citizen, you're reading this and hearing this and going, "Oh my God!" Like, one of the most powerful U.S. senators in America is writing about, literally in his amendment, flying saucers, flying discs, reverse engineering, eminent domain to acquire the craft, all this stuff. But context. So when you realize that, as the Daily Mail, Josh Boswell at the Mail reported, David Grush had a hand in helping draft the Schumer-Rounds stuff. Lou Elizondo, whose story has been completely debunked, who is a dubious character who says things that aren't true, who claims things that aren't real, played a role in helping draft the Schumer-Rounds. All this, and Jay Stratton helped, had his fingers in there. And so when you add the context of where did Schumer-Rounds come from, where did the Schumer-Rounds language come from, when you add that context, that it's a dubious cast of characters who played a role in this, then you go, oh, okay, yeah, then that kind of makes more sense. So specifically with the Schumer-Rounds stuff, I just think, fruit of the poisonous tree. It's the same people, it's the same characters that have been playing this and duping, congressional leaders for years now. That's my opinion, and I think the facts kind of point in that direction.
And so why are they representing that? So what is the end goal for Schumer-Rounds putting themselves out there? If this turns out to be false, they would be open to ridicule, right? So why would they say, for example, Schumer say we have credible people, right? So I'm not saying
because he doesn't know they're not credible. He thinks they are credible. He doesn't know the backstory of most of these people. He just sees like David Grush's resume and goes, "Oh, this guy's legit." But he doesn't dig, in my opinion, dig deeper than that. I mean, my reporting has unimpeachably shown that a lot of these characters who helped Schumer draft this language are not credible. And I think it's as simple as Schumer just doesn't know that. He doesn't have time. He's a busy guy. He doesn't have 3 days to dig in to the put-offs and to NIDS and to connect the dots between OSAP and Lukatsky. He has no idea what any of this is, in my opinion. I don't think he knows. And so I think he's just taking it on faith that, well, of course these people aren't crazy, and of course these people are legit, and going forward with it. He's not the first senator to put his neck out there. He's not a first powerful senator to put his neck out there about this stuff. I mean, Senator Harry Reid spearheaded it, and in fact, Schumer, when he introduced the legislation, said, "I'm continuing Senator Reid's legacy." And I think he said that without knowing all of the details of what Harry Reid was actually up to.
So, but I still didn't get the end. So your theory is they've fooled Schumer, they fooled Round, Gillibrand, Rubio, all of these higher level. And I'm not, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that it's just um, feels like a stretch to just assume that these are all idiots and they haven't done any kind of research to validate what these guys have told them, and just come up with like legislation. And after that, like if you listen to Schumer's floor speech, he's accusing the government, which is of the same party, executive branch and the majority in the Senate, they're of the same party. He's accusing the executive branch. He's saying the government is not being transparent. The government is hiding stuff from the public, which is not something that regularly a majority leader does out of just based on no evidence. Why
Right.
would he want
Yeah.
to why would he want to question the transparency and of the sitting government, like the executive branch?
Well, of course, the government's hiding stuff. That's what the government does. They hide stuff. That's what the military does. They hide stuff. I mean, them hiding stuff is not some big surprise. But again, I mean, he said it himself. Schumer has said it himself. Like was inspired by the 2017 New York Times article, which was false. He was inspired by Harry Reid's, mission to hunt UFOs. I've reported extensively about that. And so when Schumer himself, his words, says, here's why I'm doing this, here's my inspiration for doing this. And I have reported that all of what he just said is dubious at best, false, completely wrong. Then you have to understand that's the boat he's on. He's in the wrong direction right off the bat. And then when you learn that all of these characters, the same names, the same dubious characters, played a hand in drafting his legislation. I mean, these are giant red flags. And so, to answer your question, why is he up there saying the things that he's saying? It's because he believes a story that's false. He, like many others, and who can blame him? I mean, when every media outlet on planet Earth is reporting something, when the Times, the paper of record, the Gray Lady is saying something, and everyone else copies it and says yes. I mean, I fell victim to it. Of course, they watch Fox News. They watched Fox News with them interviewing Jeremy Corbell. They watched CNN with them interviewing Lou Elizondo. This is the media plays a major role in influencing not just public opinion, but the actions and decisions of congressional government leaders. And the media has played a big role in pushing a false story, a just easily disprovable false story. And so I think congressional leaders have gotten caught up in that.
Like,
Some of them, like Burchett, are all in, and they're just all in. Burchett's all in. If you've listened to the comments of Rubio and Gillibrand over the last 6 months, they have veered into a more skeptical, questioning the story. And I guess eventually they'll catch up.
Rubio, actually, let's talk about Rubio. He's said to, I think, News Nation that the way he was talking about it, he was like, we've had people who are feared of their lives, and I want to protect those whistleblowers. So, and then he was saying either this is true, or we have very high ranking people. He wasn't talking about, I don't think he wasn't talking about Burchett. He was saying very high ranking people with very high clearances who are coming to us saying these things. So I think
who are crazy. His
he was
exact
like,
quotes: "Who are
he
crazy."
was trying to, because of the because if he says these things are true, he's gonna get ridiculed. So that's his way of saying either there's what they're saying is true, or we have people who are crazy at the top, at the highest levels of our government, which is concerning, isn't it?
Yes, I think it's the latter. Hassan, I'm gonna thank you so much for the combo. I need to,
So, but if, so
I
one thing
guess,
before we before you go, so shouldn't we be
go ahead.
like it? I just think that so what you're saying is less likely. So you're saying is everybody is crazy. Rubio is crazy. Gillibrand is crazy. High-level government officials are crazy. Even though, let's say
No,
I'm,
no, 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 no,
let's say
no,
I'm
no. I'm not saying crazy.
Hmm.
I'm saying all of them, all of them were influenced by a globally accepted false story. All of them were duped, in my opinion. I'm not saying they're crazy. I'm saying that they were. I mean, I was too. I'm on camera saying I was wrong. I was duped. Even some of the original reporters that of this story have come out and said I was misled. You know, I was given wrong information. I think intentionally wrong information. I was one of those people. I was on the inside, and that happened. That's not an opinion. That happened. The same group of people that influenced Senator Schumer, exact same group of people, duped and deceived without question journalists, the media, and other congressional leaders for the last 6 years. There's no debate about that. That
so,
happened and is
so
continuing to
if the
happen.
media,
All right, so we're moving on. Let's see to. Oh, here we go. Lots of people. I want to get someone who I don't know. Matt Tojan. Matt Tojan. May Tojan. I'm gonna approve you. May Tojan, go ahead. May Tojan. May Tojan. Unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Hey, Stephen. Nice to meet you. So you talked about like some of the reasons why some of this is happening, but you haven't talked about like the motives. So if I were to answer the other guy's question, I would say that maybe the government has something to gain by making people believe that they have some super secret, super advanced, and super powerful tech. That might be some advantage that they could have, but do you think that they would do that by also then compromising their trust with the public? You know, because people think that they're hiding
Yeah.
something and they don't want to show it. So do you think that one motive might be that they want to make other countries think that they have a super advanced weapon? And like, do you think that's possible?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, I do think it's possible that, I mean, obviously, I mean, this is a playbook. Specifically, what I'm talking about right now is what you just said, which is, do you think they're trying to trick or fool other countries with misinformation, or and a classic playbook is to make your peer adversaries believe that you have something, and they try to replicate that. Whereas in fact, what you had was bullshit, and the story you fed out there was bullshit, and suddenly your peer adversary is wasting time, money, and resources on something that isn't real. That's a real thing that, you know, everyone does. All the major powers on Earth do. They go, oh, looks like China's got this thing. Let's get on that. Let's figure out what this is. And, you know, it's a cat and mouse game, a gray area. Do I think that the government um, is intentionally psyopping everyone about UFOs? I don't necessarily believe so. I don't think, because think about this, follow these breadcrumbs. And if the government was, all of this was a big government psyop, that would mean Lou Elizondo's in on it. That means Lou Elizondo's actually a secret agent playing a role, playing a character, right? His mission was to go out and kind of muddy the waters. Jay Stratton would have to be in on this, and he'd have to be playing a character. When he talks about the werewolf in his backyard and he talks about the ghost he saw in Skinwalker Ranch, that would have to be an act. A normal person is coming on and saying these things to push something. And then you'd have to add David Grush to that. And you'd have to add all of these other people to that. And I don't believe that's the case. I honestly believe Jay Stratton honestly believes what he claims. I believe David Grush, honestly, I don't think he's lying. I think David Grush actually believes what he's saying. I think what's going on here, and this is my opinion, but it's an educated opinion based on all the evidence I've seen, documentation, patterns of behavior. I think the government is incidentally profiting off of UFOs, meaning I think the Lou Elizondo goes out there and claims all this stuff, and it's in headlines everywhere. I don't think they're too much of in a hurry, the Pentagon. I don't think they're in too much of a hurry to rush out there and clarify and fact check. I think they're just fine with UFOs being in the headlines, and for a couple reasons. One, UFOs have been used by the government, by the CIA in the past to cover up experimental aircraft, cover up the U-2, to cover up, other experimental aircraft. UFOs were intentionally used in the media to cover this stuff up. Well, who's to say that they didn't just stop doing that? They've been doing that. And so incidentally, if people look up and they see a quote UFO and they're not seeing the X-45 or whatever they're currently flying up there, then that's a win. That's a win for the military. I also think this Pentagon has been asleep at the wheel, and it turns my hair white to think about this, but I think they've been asleep at the wheel, and I think peer adversaries such as China and Russia have been using low cost, low tech, high reward spy craft like balloons, like prosumer drones to spy on America over North America, over this, I'm not talking about South China Sea. I mean here, over military installations here, nuclear installations here. I think they've been asleep at the wheel. China, the Pentagon, our Pentagon is always about the big budget, the big toys, the big tech. And I think they disregarded a balloon, and they disregarded, creating counter CUAS, counter drone technology, and they're rushing to catch up, and they were caught with their pants down, and it's embarrassing for them. And so if the American public thinks, quote, UFOs are flying over military installations, I think they're just fine with that headline. I think they're fine with it, because the headline they don't want is Chinese military flying drones over Palo Verde nuclear facility and nothing's done about it. That would be a horrific headline for the administration, for the DoD, for the Pentagon, and heads would roll. I think they're just fine with UFOs. Okay, let's see. I'm going to move on, but we can come back to you. Let's see who I got. Unfortunately human, Pokemon man. Go ahead, unfortunately human. I have just approved you. Go ahead, sir. I don't want to gender you, sorry. Go ahead, Pokemon. You're muted. There you go.
Hey, you can hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Cool. Oh, thanks for having me. So one question I have, I guess, kind of to continue on what you were just speaking about, the government being embarrassed. I mean, like, they don't, I guess one thing I would say is they can't put it all on UFOs, because obviously the China spy balloon proves that those things are above us and happening. So they can't, I don't know, I feel like saying, oh, they can just use UFOs as cover is a little bit of a, not the best answer, in my opinion, because we already have evidence of actual adversarial tech above our heads. So
What's that evidence?
Well, the Chinese spy balloon that they shot down.
Yeah, and what was their initial plan with that we've learned? The initial plan with that Chinese spy balloon was what?
Oh,
not to shoot it down. Not do anything, not to tell the American public. It was, they decided to, quote, keep it on the down low. not to inform the American public. And the only reason their hand was forced was because a Montana newspaper took an HD photo of it, and that suddenly they had to address it. And how did the American public react to that one balloon over Montana? Outrage. It was outrage. What are we doing? How did this happen? Shoot it the fuck down. What are you doing? And it was outrage. And now imagine if the American public knew about the other incursions and the details therein and how it was withheld from them. It would be a shit show. And I think they're perfectly fine. They're perfectly fine with UFOs swarming the U.S. Navy 17 miles off the coast of California. They're perfectly fine with, quote, UFOs. This literally happened, swarming Palo Verde nuclear facility and, buzzing our border helicopters in Arizona. The headlines are often just UFOs. It's like, oh, wow, this wonder, these headlines of UFOs, it's like people get excited and it's fun. It's not so fun if you dig down to it and find out it's actually a pure adversary. And so I think the Chinese spy balloon is a microcosm, and we should all study it. How did they react to it? What was their initial plan? When their hand was forced, what happened? How often has this happened in the past? Go ahead, look back. There's quite a few over American skies, and it's my opinion, and there are some documents that show this, that it's actually could be a pure adversary that's been doing this, and UFOs have placated the public.
Sure, but I mean, those go back as many years, back to the 50s and 60s when there was over on nuclear installations. So that was before there was common drones and things that would be easy for pure adversaries to do.
Okay, so now you're okay. Well, now you're going back to the 1950s.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because that's not really my question. My real question is this. My question is, when John Kirby, when he was asked about the unknowns, and he said, yes, we do have unknowns that are flying over our training ranges, and we don't know what they are. I guess my question is, how can our government, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying, how can our government, the most funded government in the world that has more resources than everybody else combined and has more resources in terms of spy technology, in terms of space and on the ground, how can we don't know what things are incurring over our airspace and sensitive installations, and then letting the public believe like, oh yeah, it could be UFOs, be any better of an answer than adversarial tech? I mean, like, because he said we just don't know. Like, how is that an acceptable answer with all the stuff that we give the military funding and resource wise to say, I don't know, it's an unknown, we don't know what it is? I would say admitting that is a scarier proposition, saying it could be an alien thing versus an adversary, because it's like you have all these resources and you should be able to tell basically anything that's in the airspace, and you don't know what it is even now. I think that's a scarier answer.
It is a scarier answer, and I'm telling you, man, I lost sleep over this because I dug into this stuff. I really dug into the history of China-U.S. relations over the last 2 years and studied the pattern over decades leading up until today. And when you look at it, you look at some of the documents. I mean, I'll just give you an example. There were balloons off of the coast of, I believe, Florida, and there were near collisions where planes could have crashed into this massive balloon. It looked like a weather balloon, but luckily they didn't. But there was outrage both with the pilot and with the airline. And the documents, these were released via FOIA, I believe, from Mark Saccotti and Adam Kehoe during their investigation for the drive. And the communications, actual government communications, establish no one knew what to do. No one knew what to do. X department was not communicating with Y department, and Z department was wondering why A department wasn't calling so-and-so. There was an absolute lack of communication when it came to a simple thing as a weather balloon and a near miss. And it could have been, and so it really you peek behind the curtain, and outside the curtain, the biggest military on earth, the most powerful military on earth, and you peek behind the curtain, and you realize there's a lot of disorganization. There's especially with emerging technologies. Drone technology is a new emerging technology. They haven't caught up. They have not caught up, and our peer adversaries are taking advantage of it. It's clear that that's been happening, and they're doing it so breathlessly. And so when Kirby says we don't know, I believe him. Like, they don't know. They haven't been looking or paying attention. When the guy said, this was a airspace gap awareness, that's true. They were unaware of some of these smaller, low-cost, low-tech threats. And it is scary. It is scary. And the last thing you want is the American public to panic, because the American public is for the most part, a panicky, scared creature with bloodlust. I mean, you saw it with the Chinese balloon. It's like, shoot it down, shoot it down, shoot it. Like that's Americana for you, man. And like the last thing you want to do is scare them. So like, anyway, that's a long-winded answer, my friend. I hope that answered a little bit. I'm gonna see who else has requested here. I'm sorry. I know a few of you, Tupa, Chris. I know you guys, but I'm gonna have some people in here who I don't know speak a little bit. Then I'll bring you guys in. Seth, go ahead. Seth Brundle, approve. Go ahead, sir, Seth. Go ahead. You're muted, Seth. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Seth. Seth.
Do you hear me?
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, so I'm French, so pardon my French. So, I followed you before, and it seems like you were more on the other side of it, so you weren't like a full-on skeptical. And I'm wondering what kind of was that switch that at some point, I guess you didn't have a good, I would say that, a meeting with Elizondo or something, and make you switch totally. But it seems like before you had a totally different kind of interest in, I guess, the subject.
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. Okay, thank you. I'll answer that. I did something I shouldn't have done, which is back in 2019, which is when I really started digging into this story. I did something wrong, and what that wrong thing was I assumed that the entire national media was right. I assumed that the basic story that everyone was printing was correct, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have started from scratch myself. So I assumed the New York Times story in 2017 was accurate. I assumed the Politico article was accurate. I assumed CNN's coverage, everyone's coverage, the New Yorker's coverage, everyone's coverage of this, Popular Mechanics, was the basics were right. So I started there. The basics are this, and they're correct. And that's where I started. And that I should have started over. So basically what happened was in 2021, I believe May, might have been June, May 21. I was, I was friendly with Lou Elizondo and that whole camp. I was able to text, email, and get a response, and they had taken me under their wing. In retrospect, this is all in retrospect. They had taken me under their wing, and they felt comfortable with me, and they were empowering me to report this stuff. And I fell in line and reported what they were telling me, mostly credulously. But what happened was Lou Elizondo filed a complaint with the Department of Defense Inspector General's office. I asked him for a copy of it, and they sent it to me. And they had only sent it to a few people, I believe Tim McMillan, Brian Bender, Gaddy Schwartz at NBC, I believe, got one, and I got one. So it was like four or five people that had this. And that was the beginning of everything unraveling for me, because I sat down. I'll never forget this. I was up till 3 a.m. reading and rereading this, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa! Like, he's contradicting himself here. Wait, he used to say this, now he's saying this. In this complaint, he's saying he did this, but previously he told me that he had done this, and this is a contradiction. And then I started realizing, what if I'm wrong? What if this is all wrong? What if we've all been duped? And I was like, no, it can't be that. So I challenged myself to start over. I wiped it clean. I went back to square one, and I started putting all the evidence back together, and I didn't get the same result. So if something is factual and true, you should be able to repeat it and get the same result. But when you go back and you put all the same evidence together and you follow the breadcrumbs again, you don't get the same result. And so I was like, holy shit, like, this whole thing is wrong. Everyone is wrong. Everyone is wrong. And it took me a year to put all this together. And in May 2022, I released my first big report. And so I hope that answers your question. That is, that's how what changed me and what set me on a more kind of skeptical path with all this. Thanks, Seth. I'm going to bring in, let's see what we got here. People I don't know. Hey, Ocean. Hey, Ocean. Go ahead. I think I approved you. Hey, Ocean. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Steven, how's it going?
It's going great.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm doing a little bit of I'm holidazing over here. I'm smoking, so I requested, and you were going on, and I kind of forgot my question, but I'm happy to be here. I did have a friend who's at a party, so they cannot be here, and they had a question for you as well. I'm really happy you're doing this space. I watched your, that documentary you put, was it a week ago, 2 weeks ago? I absolutely love that. From your perspective, I definitely appreciate that. Yeah, I guess one of my questions was kind of, what's your take on like Greer and that whole thing? Because I've been hearing things online that there's lots of different supporters, influencers, that type of stuff. So I'm just curious, like, where you stand. Me personally,
on Greer,
like good and bad aliens. But yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Okay, cool. Thank you for the question. So on Greer, Greer fits in a category. This is just me, so I'm speaking just my personal opinion. Greer has always fit in a category with me with Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar is somebody who I haven't spent much time looking into, because I don't think it's worth my time. I'm just like, what a waste of time. Because to me, it's so obvious that it's a bunch of hooey. And wouldn't be worth my time. So with Bob Lazar, people ask me what I think about Bob Lazar, and I say, I don't think about Bob Lazar. Like, it's just so, I don't think it'd be worth my time at all. I think his story has been debunked multiple times in multiple fashions. And with Greer, I have to admit that I'm familiar with the basics about Greer. I'm familiar with his main claims. I'm familiar with the whole $5,000 give me money and I'll show you an alien spacecraft in the sky and we'll summon it, I guess, psychically summon it. And then the whole story about flares potentially being used, and that whole kind of seems like a money scam there. But Greer is like a whole different religion, isn't it? There's a whole dogma and way of viewing the UFO phenomena than like the Elizondo camp. So the Elizondo camp has kind of like their thing, and then Stratton, Grush have their thing, and then Greer seems to say, no, it's like this. It's almost like these different churches. I have a funny Greer story for you. There was a guy who worked at a source I was trying to communicate with. He worked at what's the name of the place? Mountain. Guys, what am I? Cheyenne Mountain. Worked at Cheyenne Mountain, deep intel, like where he worked with satellites and monitoring the Earth's atmosphere, monitoring space. He wasn't a senior member. He was more kind of like a middle rank guy, but he was talking about these fast walkers and that were seen sometimes at Cheyenne Mountain and some of the spooky things, quote unquote, that he saw. And I was like, whoa, like I seriously want to talk to you. So I finally had a brief chance to talk to this guy like one on one, and I was like, man, tell me more. Like, what do they think they are? Blah blah blah. And he's like, actually, I'll just save you some time. I'll save you some time. He's like, you familiar with Steve Greer? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, go listen to Steve Greer. He knows what he knows. He's the guy who knows the most about all of this. And I was like, oh, God damn it. I was like, oh, God, no. Okay. So he was like this super, super Steve Greer fan, which is great, be a fan. But it was obviously influencing what he was seeing in his day job. So that's my Steve Greer story. I haven't invested any time in Steve Greer. I have yet to feel justified doing so. I hope that answers your question. Hey, Ocean. All right. Let's move on to, all right. Chris, I'm going to bring you in, Chris. Average Chris, go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Stephen. So I got a couple of questions, but I just want to start off and say, thank you for what you've put out this year. I came onto Twitter or X back in February, and I, just like you, I actually came in a believer. I've been, rummaging around the paranormal community for years now. And of course, UFOs have always been on the radar and aliens and all that. So the fact that I came in and I started reading some of your stuff, along with Greenwald and other people have put out, just quality information that kind of makes you sit back and think, well, dang, maybe I should look into this further. So I wanted to thank you for that. But I do have three questions here. And so one, we'll just go with the most recent. So what do you think about Jay Stratton's recent activity on X? And is that any indication of anything, in your opinion, referencing to, the KMF comment, and, then Jay Stratton goes and hides or disables his likes? Like, do you think that's an indication of anything from Jay Stratton?
Jesus, it's like well, I'll get to your question, but going back in time, it was like another thing that with Elizondo that really disappointed me was, at first when Elizondo went public, he had this very stately manner about him. He came out on CNN with the suit. He was very well spoken. He was very articulate. He had this statesman. I'm talking 2018, 2019. He had this statesman air about him. And I was impressed by that. I was impressed by his kind of forthrightness. It seemed like forthrightness to the point. But then, because I spent so much time on this, you start to learn about these, quote, burner accounts, or what are they called? Burner accounts, or whatever they're called.
Sock puppets?
Yeah, sock puppets. That's the word I'm looking for. Sock puppet accounts. And then you realize some of these sock puppet accounts are Lou Elizondo, and he's acting like this, like, teenager. And he's like, this statesman, this Pentagon statesman, is like rubbing shoulders with like the weirdest people on Twitter and from sock puppet accounts, like launching these like immature attacks and ad hominem attacks. And you're like, oh, okay. So this is who this person is, and then he later admitted on, I believe, UCR that he ran sock puppet accounts. He was directly asked about it. And then when you start looking at it differently, and my recent interactions over the last year or two, I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. So he was going on CNN and putting on a show, And okay. So now I'm at your question. With Jay Stratton, Jay was someone I was obsessed with a couple years ago because no one knew who the heck this guy was. This is before he came out with the George Knapp interview. We knew his name. and we knew some of his positions, but we'd never heard from him, you know. And I was just like, who is this guy? Like, look at his resume. His resume is incredible. Like, what kind of stories will this guy tell? And then he comes out, right? And you're like, oh, okay. He's on Skinwalker Ranch show. Oh, and he's talking about he's talking about werewolf. Oh, right. And it's just like you get disappointed because you were hoping for something new, and it's more of the same. And so with the recent whatever you're talking about with the likes, he's liking he he has been on Twitter since 2009. He liked only five tweets over those many years. Two of those tweets were attacking me. One of those tweets was from a king milk fart. So on the surface, you've got this like civilian equivalent of a 4-star admiral with this like amazing resume, access to like some of the most sensitive things in US military, and he's like liking immature high school-esque tweets from a king milk fart. It's just the contrast there is just so bizarre and like disappointing to me. But I guess like once you get to know this group, it's kind of the same behavior over and over again. And so anyway, so there we go. That's a long answer to your specific question, Chris. I'll come back to you, man. Let's go to. It's weird that I only see. Oh, okay, great. Tupa, go ahead. Go ahead, Tupa.
Thanks for hosting this space, man. This is really cool.
Sure.
I'm glad it's kind of blowing up too. Good questions so far. Great answers.
Oh shit! Is it really blowing up?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just. Oh god.
Well, you never host
Go
spaces,
ahead.
so there's a lot of people that are in the spaces community, so they're all here, as far as I can tell right now.
Okay.
Yeah, you covered so much, and in your recent piece, it was really eye-opening. I wouldn't say I was duped too, right? The facade that Lou Elizondo presented, the statesman's very like professional was I made videos about it. You know, I posted because he was so well spoken in comparison to Tom DeLonge, right? Who would just say anything. It just seemed like, right? Give him a potato filmed video of a Sasquatch, he'll repost it. You know what I mean? Like, but Lou provided a little, I thought, like levity and a lot more common sense into it, and then some high end stuff I thought as well too, which was really interesting. Made a lot of videos about it, but then yeah, like that outer layer kind of starts to come off, right? And it's not always necessarily by behavior from Lou. It's the people Lou seems to support, like these random podcasters who go on the record on their own show saying what they do in Lou's name by protecting him from criticism. Now, you're like you found yourself on the list of felon 5, right? So you're definitely in his crosshairs for having criticized him in any way, shape, or form. So it does seem like that's constantly going on. And while you do great work in presenting, right, this what the structure is behind the disclosure with a capital D, like what that structure is, what it looks like, how it could have duped people. They got a media arm. They got all these different arms about them that really help present something. But have you noticed? I mean, what's your take on the online, like social media, Twitter, like kind of I would call them like attack dogs. Like, what's your view there? Because they're not only lifting up things and creating like a facade. Hey, believe in this, right? This is what's going on, and they create so much noise from so many different angles that the noise makes people believe it. But then you also have the attempt to kind of stamp down critics, which is kind of unique. Like, you know what I mean? The stamping down of critics is something that I just didn't really see coming. And when Lou was called out on UCR by Rather Be Squidding about the sock puppet account, one of the things that he said bothered him was that sometimes the sock puppet account was almost acting as a call to arms, almost like targeting people there too. What is your take? How detrimental is that effort? I mean, obviously the structure is really crazy, right? People need to know what the facade is, but we also have this under element that's stamping out people, basically putting targets on people's backs and making sure that people do not listen to them, and almost making it so that you stand against any paranormal research whatsoever, just because you stand against Lou. So that's an interesting take. What's your read on that stuff?
Right. I think there was a point in time when I paid more attention to that stuff because I don't think I realized organically what was happening. And I should say I used to be one of those people that was, groomed is not the right word, but who was nurtured, I guess. I had a voice in journalism and was being fed, I know now, inaccurate information. And, in my honest attempt to report the facts, I put my trust in sources who turned out to be not trustworthy. And so I was on the other side. I was one of the, supportive people that were voices, loud voices, influential voices that was utilized. Now, with every fan base will defend their celebrity. I mean, the Free Britney crowd. Every time there's a story about Britney, they're all online trying to shut down the Britney critics. Or I know that may seem like a silly analogy, but in a lot of ways, it's what it is. It's these people rushing to defend what they're fans of or what they're obsessed with or who they love or something like that. And so it's not an isolated set of behavior. But I have in the last year removed myself from it because of what you said, noise. It's mostly noise, and I'm not really interested in the periphery. I am, but I'm not really interested in the noise and keeping up with the noise. I want to kind of it's a distraction. I was finding myself distracted by it. And I was like, you know what? This isn't, there are juicier there's juicier meat here, and I need to find out what that is. So that's more or less what I've been doing. But there is an interesting story here. I mean, NASA, it has gone public. It's come off of Twitter. These rabid, I've gotten threats. Can you believe it? I've gotten threats, but from folks. But when NASA openly said we've gotten harassment, we've gotten harassed. Kirkpatrick, getting harassed, and if it's coming from the same sources. It's coming from the same group that you speak of. It's the same kind of harassment group, and therein is its own story. I mean, it's a soap opera. It's as the saucer turns, man. It is a very dramatic and turn of events, it seems, and people are tearing their heads off. And to be honest with you, I just kind of got tired of it and removed myself from it. I did see that Steve Greer, in one of his documentaries, included the Felon 5 list.
That's right. Yeah.
Which I think a lot of people. It's just you could see that as this like big, huge, nefarious thing, but I just see it as something dumb, as something really stupid, and disappointing. I just see it as something disappointing and stupid. And yeah. Anyway,
But isn't it so stupid that it like fractures the integrity of the entire ship? Like it's not just kind of corny, you know what I mean? It's so corny. Like it is corny. And it did bleed out into NASA, even into Congress and stuff. People are finding themselves on the opposite end of these UAP activists, and their social media is getting blown up, right? Mike Turner's one. Just go look through any one of Mike Turner's posts. You'll see it's crazy.
No, I tweeted this a few times, but one of the things what I did that was advantageous to reporting on this was noticing patterns. When you notice patterns in an Elizondo or a Stratton, they said this, but they previously said this, and they seem to have a pattern of changing pieces of their story, and you put it all together and look at it chronologically, you see patterns emerge. And like a pattern with Jeremy Corbell, for example, is his language of war and bombs and kick the door down and get pissed and UFO. This is our UFO Vietnam, I think he said at one point, like very warlike language. And then when you understand that underneath of that are very angry, upset individuals who are fans, and some of them may be mentally unstable, and they're talking about Congress, like, and with January 6th, for example, I think January 6th was a good example about how something is as simple as a tweet with warlike language or aggressive language from a leader figure can lead snowball to dangerous areas. And so it's like, yeah, there is. I think it's its own story. No one's really covered it in the mainstream media. I personally don't have time I just don't have time and resources to do it, but it is a story. It's an interesting story and one I hope to tell one day.
I'm glad you're focusing on what you're focusing on, man. Your pieces are amazing. That last one was eye-opening, kind of shattering, you know what I mean? This whole thing.
Right.
In a way that allows it to be built up on something more realistic and less bombastic and less about character and less about personality, which is great. And so, yeah, I'm glad you're focusing on what you're focusing on, man.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Steve. Okay, moving on to, let's see who we got. Haven't we gotten to here? I only see 2 requests to speak. Okay, so I'm actually gonna talk for a second, and then I'll bring in author. So here, let me go back here. Okay, great. So I think with this, UFOs used to be fun. UFOs used to be fun. Pre-2018, UFOs, especially when I was a kid, but the idea of UFOs, the idea of a non-human intelligence and, finding these answers or feeling like you know something that others don't, like that you've been made aware of a truth or something, is exhilarating and it's fun. And I really miss those days when UFOs were just a conversation. UFOs were this kind of like what if, and it's like because of the characters who have kind of appropriated and rebranded the idea of UFOs, it's become this kind of bitter topic. It's just it's just become kind of gross and weird and uninviteful and anyway, so I yearn for the days when UFOs can just go back to a cool conversation, intellectual conversation, philosophical conversation, scientific conversation, and we can get rid of some of the drama, the characters and the drama, some of which we've talked about today. Author, go ahead, author.
We've been digging into and the subsequent 3 shootdowns. I'm curious, are you thinking that those subsequent 3 shootdowns, like the one in Alaska, Yukon, and Lake Huron, are Chinese surveillance devices and that the government is lying to us about that and calling them UFOs to kind of get us off the trail?
Yeah, good question. Great question. So they got trigger happy right after the February 3rd shoot down. I think it was February 3rd of the big balloon. Then all of a sudden it was bop, bop, bop. They're shooting things down left and right. One of the things that was reported was that they adjusted the scope of their radar, basically. They adjusted and they were suddenly able to see smaller objects. And what happened when they adjusted that? Bing! Suddenly small things everywhere. And I'm sure there was a rush to address it all because the American public is suddenly at arms over this big one. So we got to rush to take care of it. Oh my God. But do I think they were Chinese spy balloons? I don't necessarily have any information that leads me to believe that, other than the established historical precedent of that happening. I think it really could have been hobby balloons or normal balloons. I don't know if you guys saw, but Matt Laszlo, who's just essential at this point when it comes to this topic, Matt Laszlo, congressional reporter, he actually was able to get Mikulski on the Alaska senator on the record. And she said that she finally saw images of the Alaska object that was shot down. What did she say? She said it looked like a balloon. It looked like a balloon. And they never recovered it because a snowstorm came in. But yes, is it possible there were Chinese spycraft or other Russia flying over the Arctic? Sure. I don't think there's any definitive information other than a U.S. senator saying it looked like a balloon. But I think it could have been, at least some of them could have been as simple as a hobby balloon or a weather balloon. Yeah.
Well, I just think it's highly unlikely that it's a hobby balloon, just because of how much resources were devoted towards this. Do you think that the government is lying when they say they couldn't find the debris?
I don't have any evidence that shows that the government is lying about them not finding the debris. I mean, Senator Mikulski herself said they weren't able to find anything. A snowstorm did move in, or was moving in during. And so you have to think about it. If it was something as low tech as a balloon, then yeah, down there in the icy mountainous regions with a snowstorm coming in, then yeah, it could be a literal needle in the haystack, especially if it didn't have any, you know, technological devices on it, untrackable, detectable devices. What if it was just like some normal inflatable? Then yeah, I can believe that they didn't find anything. I have no reason to believe that the government is lying that they didn't recover a downed balloon. I have no reason to doubt Senator Mikulski when she says recently that it looked their images do exist, by the way. They're not releasing them, which is there could be a couple reasons for that, but the senator says it looked like a balloon. You'll notice, and I see this often on Twitter, they say the government has instantly released gun cam footage and GoPro footage shot from U.S. fighter jets of Chinese drones, of Chinese fighters, incursions with them in the South China Sea. Almost overnight, they released that to the public. But with this stuff up in these objects in Canada, they're still holding tight onto these objects. A U.S. senator is on the record saying she saw them and that it would look like a balloon. And you have to start thinking, why? Well, it's because, it's my opinion, they just want to control the conversation. The Chinese drone in the South China Sea is a sympathetic story. Look how China is messing with us. We're the good guys. They're the bad guys. They're the aggressors. We're just doing our jobs. That's kind of the messaging of that video. But if they were to release a video of like a Paw Patrol birthday balloon being nuked by an F-16, what that message is we don't know what the fuck we're doing. It's like that message is totally different. Or if it is another Chinese balloon, it's a visual reminder to the American people that this is happening, that there is this like onslaught of spying that's been happening, and maybe they don't want that image being spread. Words die way faster than an image. So there's a couple faceted reasons there that it could be happening. I don't have any evidence that points either way, though. Thanks, author. Let me go here. Getting the knack of this now. Let's see. Who we have? I don't think Jesse has spoken yet. Jesse, we have to go. All right, Jesse, go ahead.
Hey, Stephen. Question would be, what are your thoughts or opinions on the Eric Weinstein stuff, where he's putting, has thoughts about UFOs being connected with like the history of physics and whatnot. And I just wanted to see what you were thinking on that stuff. I know you try to get some answers from him at one point in Twitter, but I don't know.
Yeah. Man, I really don't want Eric Weinstein coming after me. So let me think. So like, he's obviously, educated and very animated when he becomes passionate about something and dives into it. I do believe that he is a little bit perhaps too credulous when it comes to some of the characters he listens to, or at least that he believes might be telling the truth. I uh, I don't know. Like I'm not looking to Eric Weinstein right now for physics evidence of UAP. But he is kind of like a great like bellwether for where folks like him, influential, smart people, are kind of in the conversation. And that's another aspect of all of this that's really kind of surprised me and made me do a hard think is uh, influential people who should be smart, should be critical thinkers, are smart, are critical thinkers, and on a multitude of previous topics that have nothing to do with UAP, for some reason, with this topic, it's like their brains, and I'm not talking about Eric Weinstein, I'm talking about like a whole group of people here, that their brains kind of get super excited and they start saying uncritical things and leaping to uncritical conclusions that are just baffling to me. It's just, I mean, good Lord. I mean, with Tucker Carlson lately, the guy always said stuff that was, was prone to be baffling, but he's going into the demon world now with the spiritual UFO spiritual realm and demons and angels and all this stuff. And it's like, this isn't a guy on a conspiracy blog. He is at one point the most listened to news figure in America. Is just baffling to me. So I guess Eric Weinstein inspired me to talk about more a larger group in general. But yeah. Let's see here. We have. Wait, where'd you guys go? I got Astral and I have Jeremy. I'm going to go Astral. The Astral. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, the Astral.
Hey, what's up, man? In your opinion, what's the difference between a skeptic and a debunker? And can you name, like, what are your examples right now of people you feel like are skeptics? And what are people right now who you feel like are debunkers that are happening right now in the community?
Sure. So a skeptic, you're asking me. So my opinion, a skeptic is someone who goes, maybe it isn't. A skeptic is someone who goes, wait a minute. A skeptic is someone who says, wait, maybe I'm wrong. And a skeptic is someone who, I guess, asks questions. And I mean, in the word itself, is skeptical of something. So a skeptic is someone who questions a story, questions something. A debunker, I guess, is a successful skeptic. Meaning they have debunked, they've taken their skepticism and debunked something. So the Mick West is successfully using math, science, and logic, has successfully and unimpeachably debunked quite a few UFO videos. So I guess a skeptic is someone who is asking questions, and a debunker is someone who has, in essence, answered the question. I consider myself a journalist, and any good journalist is a skeptic. And if they're really good journalists, I guess they eventually disprove things to be false. So I guess I've definitely debunked quite a few aspects of this story, but I don't know names. I'd have to really think about it. Specific names, but that's more or less kind of like my personal definitions. Let's see. Jeremy Wilson was next. Jeremy, go ahead. Request to speak. Jeremy.
Hey, thanks for letting me speak.
Uh-huh.
So, I don't know if I came in late on this, but I'm looking at King's post here on the stream about Danny Sheehan, and essentially, I'm trying to figure out. Normally I don't care too much about credentials. I care about what you have to say. Credentials matter, but I'm not like, oh, because they are a lawyer, they're inherently ethical or more intelligent. And so Sheehan, though, is the exception because everything he has done in his life appears to be a truly moral endeavor as a reflection of his Jesuit, faith. Like that's their whole thing is social justice and, environmental causes and, the indigenous peoples' causes. And so what benefit is it for him to completely risk everything if he's not 100% certain of this phenomenon? What possible angle could exist for this guy?
Well, I think he said it himself. I mean, if you dig into the language of the Paradigm Institute, which used to be the the ministry. This used to be he used to run a UFO ministry, some kind of pseudo religious sci-fi thing. It was rebranded to the Paradigm Institute. And he says that there are multiple goals there, goals that involve like getting in tune with chakras, goals that involve with overcoming the Lucifer's failure. Basically, I mean, he writes basically verbatim on the website that they want to overcome Lucifer's initial temptation. The language is very, very new age religion, and they want to. There's this like next step in evolution aspect to his motive, or his written motives at least, that
Yes.
he wants to unify humanity essentially, if I'm understanding correctly, and then take humanity to the next spiritual level, kind of like Kubrick's Star Child at the end of 2001, like push us through the monolith and get us into the next stage of spiritual and human evolution. So to answer your question, what's in it for him? He says it himself, and that's more or less what I just described.
Well, the only thing that I would just push back on politely is the Christic Institute and the Romero Institute. The Christic Institute is basically how the government bankrupted him after the Iran-Contra exposure. But his institutes have actually quantifiably done good and like done incredible good for the social cause. So it's just very peculiar. I'm not saying one way or another, but it's made me look at everything from a completely different angle. And I think in a respectful way, there's more pressure that needs to be put on the relationship between Elizondo and Sheehan and what the hell is really going on.
Well, it's clear to me that Sheehan honestly, at some level, believes all this stuff, like to his core, because why? Because it's not something new, as you said with Sheehan. He's been doing this for a very long time, and I'm talking specifically about the pseudo-religious UFO spiritual stuff. Like this has been a part of his life for a long time, and when you look back at his, not just the current institute, but his previous ministry that he had, this is just a thing. And there's no doubt, I guess I can't argue that there have been aspects of societal good. I mean, churches, some of the worst wars that this planet has ever seen has been because of religion. But that's not to say that at a microcosmic level, a religion hasn't helped a person or helped a society or helped whatever at some point in time. Sure. So I'm sure done some great things. I personally look at that stuff and in wonder. I just can't believe some of the stuff that, and Sheehan is right there with Congress, like trying to work with Congress and legislation. And I'm on his website and he's talking about chakras, the next spiritual level of humanity, and Lucifer, and I'm just like, oh my
But that's
gosh,
kind of a non sequitur. Like the point is that he's exposed government entities for truly awful things that they did multiple times. So
yeah,
it's like,
like
well,
when did he do that?
With the Kerr-McGee nuclear case, with Wounded Knee, with the Lakota Project,
Right.
with I mean, the list goes on and on. I only say this respectfully because there truly is an anomalous phenomenon in this man. Like something is very obscured to us. And I think it has to do with his relationship to the church. He did go to Harvard Divinity, which is like, the most elite of elite divinity schools, turned down the Jesuit priesthood and decided to go into law. So that my point is, I think maybe as a community, like we should respectfully kind of give this guy the full, questioning. I think it's on them to at least say, if Lou can't talk for specific reasons about the things that Sheehan's talking about, they need to say why.
Yeah, well, I look forward to it. I mean, there's no doubt that he's been involved in some incredible cases that have held people accountable, right? And he didn't just do that with words or a website. He did that with irrefutable evidence, right? Courts, law, evidence, and then a judicial decision was made based upon argument, right? So I look forward, honestly, to any evidence that Sheehan would like to put forth that would support even one of the many claims coming from not just him, but the folks that he represents and the folks that he's trying to influence Congress with. I look forward to it.
Absolutely.
I'm all on board. I can't wait for Danny Sheehan to present evidence as he's always done throughout his career. What a game-changing day that would be. Danny Sheehan producing, irrefutable evidence of non-human intelligence and Lucifer and whatever the hell else is on his website, man. Well, we're in for a ride if he does that.
Thank
All
you.
right, man.
Thank you for
You're
letting
welcome.
me speak. I appreciate
Of course. Yep, of course. All right, I'm going to requests. Who do I got here? Stray lock. Go ahead, Straylock. Yep, unmute yourself.
Hey, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I have a question. I really like your show, The Basement Office, and I saw a few episodes, and I wanted to ask, I saw one episode in which you were talking about the Zamora incident and the children in Zimbabwe, I believe, in the school.
Yes.
And I am quite interested, since you changed your opinion about that topic, I wonder, what do you think about the older cases, like Zamora incident, which is really interested, and that farmer in the Friends, or also is quite interesting a case. So I wonder, what do you think about that right now, and what's your opinion?
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I did look into the Zamora incident. It's a cool case, right? It's so cool. It's got like the drawing, it's got the sketch, the little arrow on the side, the description of the two occupants, outside the craft, getting inside the craft, and then it taking off with a combustible rocket engine. And so, and shaking, it sounded, the guy, I mean, Zamora said it sounded like dynamite going off throughout the valleys there in Socorro, New Mexico. When you start putting some of those pieces together, it launched with what seemed to be rocket power or flames coming out the bottom, the sound of combustion, I obviously think human technology that seems to gel with quite a few million things that humans have created. So to me, I think he experienced some kind of experimental craft at the time. 14 miles southeast of there was White Sands, New Mexico, one of the biggest testing ranges of top secret craft, new craft that the military has. It's just 14 miles. And so did something fly off course, land, indoor crash? Did he witness that? I don't know. But to me, just my personal opinion, I think it was something human made. Zimbabwe was another case that at one point in my life I was absolutely obsessed with, and it's those children, right? So those testimonies of those children and the drawings that they made. I say that, don't I? A lot of people make fun of my accent. Drawings. I put an L in drawings. Yeah, drawings of the children, which are great, and it's such a great story, and it's so captivating. But when you begin to put things together as chronologically as you can, okay, incident happened this day. How long until students first interviewed? What did they say in that first interview versus what did they say when John Mack interviewed them? When did they draw their pictures? You start putting those things together. I don't think, I think it was it could be mass hysteria. It could be a story. Kids are spooked, man. I have 2 kids, and I observe kid behavior every day. They're not babies, they're actual kids, and kids get spooked, and kids tell stories, and kids draw things. I think my daughter last night, was telling this elaborate story about a tiger, and she drew it and how she saw it, and of course she didn't see a tiger, but you just kind of go with it. Anyway, so where I am personally is I think something spooked them, or some of them, and it got embellished, and it got appropriated by other characters with questionable motives. That's my Zimbabwe. If you guys want to talk, just hit the request to speak. I noticed some people, they had requests to speak and then they disappeared from my request list. So if you want to speak, just hit the request to speak option. Oh, it says 9 requests to speak. Okay, where the hell do I see that? Is it with hands up? People with their hands up, I guess is what that is.
Yeah, people will raise hands when they want to speak as well. I also have been putting things in your nest for you that are related to what we've been talking about, just like your talking points. But yeah, people do have hands, and if you make co-hosts, then you'll have more space, or you can rotate people down.
All right. Oh, here we go. I see Logan. Here we go. I see it now. Thanks, Hey Ocean. Appreciate it. Logan, full stack. Go full stack, Logan. Logan, batter up. Hey, batter.
Hey, what's up, brother? Hey, I don't know if you remember the last time we hung out. Do you remember that time?
I think so. Yeah.
That's unfortunate. But yeah, I wanted to say, how's Nick Pope? Are you guys good friends? And what's your take on what his beliefs are? And you guys have the similar beliefs?
Nick is okay. So with Nick's one of I consider a friend because he's been extremely helpful. I went into this in 2019 and it was like trying to drink water from a fire hose on full blast. It was, I basically wanted to know everything about UFOs since the 40s, and I wanted to know overnight, which is impossible. And Nick was someone who was able to come in and is obviously, this is what he does. This is all he does is all of these, all the classics, all the greatest hits. He was helpful in telling the UFO believer side of the story. So UFO believers believe what happened. Tell me the story about Roswell. Tell me the story about, whatever case. And he was able to kind of fill me in on that. And then that was kind of a starting point for me to then go and dig up other other things. And so he was great, and he didn't have to, you know, let's be honest, like Nick Pope is a UFO celebrity. That guy is he is the UFO Hollywood. He's like an A-lister, man. And when I was starting my little UFO show, I was like, I want to get someone who knows this stuff and has known this stuff for a long time. And I reached out to various folks, and to be honest with you, I actually think I reached out to Jeremy Corbell. This is back before I really knew Jeremy Corbell, and I think he was one of the people I reached out to be my co-host on Basement Office. Could you imagine that, by the way? If it was Jeremy Corbell and me, oh my God, that would have been a totally different show. But Nick, you know, he came in, and I think we were only supposed to do one episode with Nick. He was only supposed to be there for one episode, and he was like, you know what, like if you want, I'll do all the episodes with you. And I was like, really? Like that's great. And we just hit it off. Like, I don't know, he's a funny Brit. You know, he's got, you know, some pizzazz, and we hit it off great. And he was extremely helpful to me. And so I owe him definitely a lot and he didn't have to, like, he totally didn't have to help me the way he did and kind of like be a friend the way he was. So he's great. I like Nick. And while we now disagree on probably a ton of stuff, that's fine. That's okay. You know, I do believe that his claims of running a MOD UFO program are embellished and not necessarily completely accurate. I don't even, you know, I think that when the news media says this guy was running a UK UFO project, I don't personally believe that's completely accurate, though his name is on MOD UAP documents. They're there for the public to see. You look up MOD documents, you're going to see Nick Pope, his name, his signature and stuff. So was he involved with UAP stuff at MOD? He was. Probably not to the degree that, you know, a lot of folks say it was, but he was. There's more evidence that Nick Pope was involved with a UAP project in the UK than there is of Lou Elizondo being involved with a UFO program in the United States. But we're cool. I love Nick, and I know I've been a frustrating pain in the ass to him because he has to go to Ancient Aliens Live with Travis Taylor, who hates my guts. He has to show up to all of these conventions, and I know it's causing him grief, and part of that tickles me, and a part of that I feel I'm like, hey, man, sorry. So anyway, all right, requested. Zach, I think you're next. Zach, go ahead. Zach, Perceptua. Zach, you talking? Go ahead.
What's going on, man?
Hey,
Steve. So I had a question for you, man. First of all, I want to say I really appreciate you doing this space. It's really interesting to kind of hear you speak about it as opposed to just reading the tweets. So I really appreciate it. My question for you was, I'm curious as to your thoughts on the whole UFO phenomenon as a whole, right? Because obviously it's a conspiracy that really not only expands further back in time, well before Elizondo and Grush and all them, but more broadly in scope, right? When you start talking about various anecdotes of abductions, encounters, and things of that nature. So what's your broad take on the phenomenon? I guess more specifically, to really dial that in, what degree of validity do you give the possibility that we're being interacted with by a non-human intelligence?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking it, Zach.
Yeah.
I would say that one of the biggest lessons I've learned is when it comes to topics of belief, which I believe the UFOs, classic quote unquote UFO phenomena is, it's a topic of belief, and it's a topic of faith. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this space because it would either be true or it would not be. So it's in a lot of ways, it's a question of belief and question of faith. And I think humans tend to have an either or mentality regarding things. Either it is or it isn't. Either it's true or it's not. Either UFOs are real or they're not. And I think a lot of people aren't able to nuance the idea of the phenomena out. And so I get a lot of responses like this on Twitter. I'll report that evidence shows that Lou Elizondo has not been truthful in his claims. And the responses will be, so you're saying UFOs aren't real? And I'll say, no, I literally didn't say that at all. But people have an either or mentality where, okay, so if Elizondo's wrong, that means it's all wrong. And I haven't ever once reported that or said that. I do believe that there are UFOs and that they're real from the nuanced perspective of unidentified flying objects in the sky that you can't identify. I'm sure at some point stars were UFOs, the sun was a UFO, the moon was a UFO at some point in humanity. So that idea, there are things in the sky we can't identify, UFOs. But go further. Is there anything that appears to be otherworldly, something that is strange and not understood yet? Maybe. I'm on the maybe of that. Who knows? I'm on the maybe of that. Is there stuff, potentially natural phenomena that we haven't seen in or learned about? Yes. Yeah, I'm on the maybe side of that. And I'll say that because I have spoken to some people who I just don't think are crazy. I don't think they're crazy, who have told me some stories, man. And these are people who I know. So these aren't people who I'm just hearing about for the first time. These are people who I know or have known. And I've heard some stories, not like abductions or anything like that, but stories about some phenomena that have made me raise my eyebrow, be like, okay, well, that sounds kind of weird. So yeah, I'm on the maybe on that aspect. Do I believe that we're being visited by non-human intelligence? I'm near zero on that. No. For something like that, I would need something. I would need something. For example, at some point they said there was water on Mars. There was water on Mars. Well, we didn't know that completely until an entire scientific, rigorous analysis was done over years and studies, and then there it is. Here's the evidence. Here's the water. Here's a study of the water. Now, no one doubts that there's water on Mars. So when it comes to non-human intelligence visiting us, and the current characters, the loudest characters currently claiming that, no, I am nowhere near being on board with that. But so I guess if I could talk for 2 more hours, we could get, more kind of philosophical with that. But I would say maybe. Is there a phenomena that humans haven't understood yet? Maybe. I hope that answers your question.
On that note, I wanted to ask, did you heard about Terrence McKenna and some of his speeches? In some of his speeches, he's talking about UFO encounters and highly strange phenomena. And he's like, yeah, we were taking psychedelics and we had those type of hallucinations and it's strange. And what I also noticed is that suddenly most of the people like Graj and Elizondo, they are talking about that. They are saying like, oh, it may be something from some way of consciousness, some anomaly in consciousness or whatever. Did you ever consider that opinion or that view on that topic?
Yeah, I think I considered it at one point a while ago before I realized that the full scope at just how dubious, trickster, deceptive a lot of these folks are, at which point I not only questioned everything they said, but began to almost by default dismiss it as false. So But to build on what you're saying, that is kind of like where this is heading. One of my biggest suggestions to anyone who may be skeptical is do your own homework. Go back. You can go back to 2017, start with that article, and slowly move forward. Do searches, follow the evidence again. You're going to be really surprised where you end up. Or you can go back to 95, when Robert Bigelow created the National Institute of Discovery Science, and move forward, that's more or less as far back as I've gone deeply. But we're in new territory, because for a couple years there recently, it was about things in the sky. We got to keep our pilots safe. We should be able to be better identify. Lou was on CNN saying, like, I want to prevent the next 9/11. We can't have our pants down. All good things, all great points. That's where it started. We're now in, it's consciousness, and it's another dimension, and it's not aliens, but it's not human intelligence, and it's like spiritual, and it's demons, and it's like it's just full woo. They've Hail Married it. It seems like they're just throwing this Hail Mary, and it's really gone off the rails. I'm sure if you're in it and you're stoked on it and you're so into this, I'm sure it's exciting. But for someone like me personally, who has over the years stepped outside, it looks so crazy to me, and it's baffling to me. And I guess, at what point do people go, okay, you jumped the shark? Because they have jumped over like 28 sharks at this point. There's only so many times Fonzie can jump over that shark, so from where I'm standing, it's anyway, so that's my opinion. Hands up. I'm not seeing any new faces. I'm going to try to end this by 5, if that's okay, because I'm a dad and I got to do dad stuff. Let's see here. Anybody with their hands up? I guess we could go back.
Yeah, I'll go. And I think we can do it. I think we can get through this before 5.
All right.
I did not know that about Daniel Sheehan. A lot of this stuff, in terms of like what it seems like the belief system of some of these high level people of disclosure, it really mirrors a lot of like like Rosicrucianism and this accelerationist like idea, especially their definitions of Lucifer and how they kind of want to push humanity towards a crossroads or a choice, right? To push evolution forward. Like, have you noticed that in other people too, other than Sheehan? And if so, like, if you look at this from a certain angle, let me just rephrase it. When I look at this from a certain angle, I could kind of easily make the argument that it looks like a lot of these things like Ariel School and these really like big UFO cases that are carried on into like myth. It's almost like they're laying the groundwork for mythology that will set the foundation for a new religion that incorporates science and religious thought. But I'm just saying, if I look at it from a certain angle, I can make that argument. Have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah. Yes, totally. 100%. I mean, when you dig into this stuff, there is always a aspect of that, a new kind of pseudo religion. It's almost like a combination of a few religious ideas with a few kind of like science fiction ideas. Like there is some kind of formation going on. What I'm about to say doesn't mean I adhere to it, but I did notice it, is what I'm going to say. I did notice it. There does seem to be some kind of new world order talk. And what I mean, I don't mean that from the like classical conspiracy sense, but from the like one world unity, one world government, one world. I noticed that at the end of the News Nation interview with David Grush, that was the sentiment. Grush is all, and Coulthard are like, like hopefully ultimately like this phenomena brings everyone together and we can all fall under the same thing, the same borders or whatever. And then I've noticed that, a lot of other that mentality, the Sheehan's mentality, which is like unify humanity, propel humanity to the next spiritual level, that there is this, there's commonalities between a lot of these kind of religious claims. It's a faith-based thing, because if it wasn't a faith-based thing, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because they would either, there are the facts. But a lot of folks, they have faith. Faith is believing in something that you can't see, that's not in front of you. So a lot of folks have faith, and with faith tends to come religion. But which came first, religion or faith? So yeah, that's a long way. I don't want to get too deep in the religious stuff on this stuff, because even it confuses even me. There was a request I had missed for a while. Where did she go?
Yeah, so what's happened is I think you're filled up with speakers now. So I think when people are done asking, like when I'm going to ask this question, I'll just drop down. That way that gives more room for speakers to come on.
Okay. All right. There we go. Okay. I see what happened now. Thank you I'm a noob at this, I guess. Jeez Louise. Okay.
I got you.
All right. All right. Let me still do this. There we go. Okay. I think that worked. Great. So anybody who wanted to speak, if you could just resubmit your speaker request, that would be great. And then this has been pretty good. I've like talking to you guys. I honestly wait. I promised that people were going to yell at me. I thought people were going to yell at me. If anybody wants to yell at me, just put your hand up. I thought that's what we're.
They're too chicken to yell. Up in the nest, I put your picture there of the, is that the correct drawing? And then my question was just about this Danny Sheehan. There's a clip, if you swipe or click right, there's a video of Danny Sheehan talking about how reptilians are hot. I'm curious if you find reptilians hot. And on a more serious note, have you heard of this, the pole shift? I've been hearing talks that there's some pretty serious catastrophic weather and planetary stuff coming up, and I'm curious, one, so are reptilians hot, and two, is the world going to end soon? And I'll drop down to make space. And thank you so much for holding this space. I've been loving it.
Sure. Are reptilians hot? I don't know of any, so I can't judge. But I'm the type of person that looks beyond skin, so I'm sure there is. There are some hot reptilians. I'm sure people who identify as reptilians. Do people?
Okay, good to know.
Do people identify as reptilians? Is that a thing yet? Maybe, I don't know. And then as for what's the cosmic death stuff that you brought up? Cosmic death. What is it?
Yeah, catastrophic planetary environmental stuff like pole shifts, end of the world. I've been hearing a lot of this lately.
Yeah.
So have you heard this?
Yeah, I've heard about that, at least once a year for the last maybe 20 years. I hear about the ice and the poles and the magnetic and the whatever it's gonna kill us all. Yeah. So is there any credence to it? I'm not educated enough to be able to provide that answer. I will say this. Everyone should go look it up. It's a couple years old now, but go look up the End of the World podcast. It's a mini series. I believe it's 8 episodes. The End of the World. Scientific, very philosophical, and it talks about the different ways humanity could go extinct relatively soon. And this predated COVID, but one of the episodes was dedicated to biohazards and diseases and viruses. But it also, there's the aliens, there is simulation theory. It's one of the greatest things, but they do talk about the ways that this planet could extinct all of humanity. So the End of the World podcast, I advise it. Go check it out. Let me see if there's anybody here. Yeah, most everyone here has already. Logan, I'm going to bring you back in. Manage it. Go ahead, Logan. Go ahead, Logan. You there, Logan?
It takes about 10 seconds to connect. Yeah.
Man, you really know your spaces.
I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. 10 seconds. Logan, if you're there, speak now. Emily, did you want to say something? I just invited you. I saw your hand up. Okay.
Yeah, no, I had a message from Christian. He was trying to get up. He had a question for you. I could ask it for him, or I could send it to you, but it'd be nice if he could ask it. And Chris has his hand up.
Okay. Chris has a hand. Is his name Chris, or does he have one of those UFO handles where it's going to be possible? Chris, I don't see you, Chris. I just let a whole bunch of people. Oh, Benno. There we go.
I think she's referring to me.
Okay, who is that? I'm trying to find you. What's your handle, or what's your?
The average Chris.
Oh, that was you. The average Chris. Okay. All right.
I was just gonna ask us, with your recent documentary, Spooky Hustlers, especially the first 45 minutes of that are pretty pivotal with talking about ALSAP, ATIP, Elizondo, who was really the director, and when. It was really well informative. And then you get into Skinwalker Ranch and Brandon Fugel. Moving forward, will you be pursuing anything else with Skinwalker Ranch anymore? Or will we see anything else come out about them?
No. I hope not.
And
I hope not. I hope not. I mean, I figuratively burned it to the ground after my last episode that there's nothing there. Unfortunately, there's nothing there. They got a whole lot of nothing, and it's a whole bunch of like grown men running around chasing bugs and spiders and thinking they're interdimensional spacecraft. I hope I'm done with that. I hope I never ever have to like think about Skinwalker Ranch again, but acknowledging just how big a role it plays in the current circus that we're in. I hope I don't ever have to. I hope that's behind me, Chris. I hope that's behind me. Ben, I'm gonna move. I gotta go soon. So Benno.
Hey, thanks for hosting the room, Stephen. And I am a big fan of your work, and I think that you're probably underappreciated in this field than what most people realise. I think that people like you are needed to create kind of like a balanced sort of, snap back to reality in some senses. But my question to you, what I wanted to ask you is, what do you say to people like me, right? I consider myself a fair income kind of guy. I call a spade a spade. But I've had experiences with, I guess you'd say, craft up close that absolutely defy modern physics. I've worked at an airport to the point where I've worked in help with construction of aircraft and whatnot. So I'm not an idiot. I know what a balloon looks like. I know what a plane looks like. I'm a pretty simple kind of guy, but I call a spade a spade. So when I've had an up close experience many years ago, which set off subsequent experiences as well. But I mean, as long as I'm talking to you, this conversation's real. So is what I saw. So what do you say to people like me when you, because you made a claim earlier, like UFO is more like the belief, like religion, like it's not for me because I've seen things that I can't explain. I'm not saying they're from green men from another planet. I'm not saying that they're deep state technology, but they've kind of got to be either or one of them, don't they? It's got to be either human or non-human. So what do you say to people like me where I'm beyond the belief sort of? If you know what I mean?
Sure. Well, first of all, I say I believe you. Would be the first thing I say is I believe you. I have no reason to not believe you. So I believe you saw something and it was strange. I saw something strange. Not close, but close-ish. My experience with a boomerang-shaped object with bluish lights on the bottom that silently flew overhead and didn't make a sound, and it creeped the hell out of me in 2003. I saw that, and I don't know definitively what the hell it was. And I have seen things that look similar to that, but nothing that exactly was what I saw. And I can't put a period on that. It's still a question mark, and yours is still a question mark. Now, for me personally, with my sighting, I don't have any reason to think it was aliens or non-human intelligence. I don't have any reason, meaning I don't have anything. to look at, to touch, to, you know, to ingest in my brain that says this was non-human intelligence. That leap is too far for me to make that. It's fun to think about if it was, but I don't know. And let's be honest, it's that question mark that drives a lot of people. You know, sometimes a period is boring. Like if I was to find out it was some like balloon or dirigible, I'd be like, oh, okay. Oh crap. That's all it was. You know, I'd be kind of bummed out. The fact that I don't know is still kind of cool. It makes it kind of cool. So yeah, I would say I believe you, and you're not alone, because tons of other people have seen weird stuff. And I said earlier in this space, like I've spoken to people like yourself who have told me stories that, you know, raised the hair on the back of my neck, and I can't explain it. You know, I have no data, photos, any kind of information to kind of verify that story, but the story itself is, I have no reason to doubt them, and they seem sincere. So I believe you. All right, let's see here. Steve Long. Go ahead, Steve Long. I hope I didn't just delete. Yeah, there you go, Steve. Unmute thyself. There you go.
Yep, sorry about that.
Good.
Hey, Steve, how's it going?
Good.
Hey, thanks for doing this tonight, man, and thanks for coming back around and taking a second look at the topic. It's been cool to see people like you and Lou Angeles come along and kind of hold themselves accountable for the things that they reported in years previous, and kind of put accountability and transparency above content and access and whatnot. So appreciate that all around. I just wanted to ask, since you're kind of wrapping up here, what are your plans for the future? I know a couple months ago you said that you were kind of pulling back from the topic and maybe doing a couple last videos with the post. Is that still the case, or do you not have any plans at the moment? Are you going to continue to follow the topic publicly and make videos?
Yes. The answer is yes. Hold on a sec. Hold on. That was loud. The answer is yes, but my problem is I'm a video journalist, and so if it takes a while to create a Netflix style documentary. You can't do that overnight. So I'm actually sitting on a mountain of stuff, like a mountain of stuff. Whatever I've reported, like I have a lot. I have a lot of stuff, and I'm just kind of sitting on it. Some of these stories I'm percolating a little bit. I'm going to let some of these stories play out a little longer, and I'm going to pay more patient attention to stuff before I pull a trigger. But yes, I'm going to be reporting quite a few things. I mean, I shot a one-on-one interview with Robert Salas. Geez Louise, a while ago. It was just him and me in a Zoom, talking about UFOs and nukes, talking about all the discrepancies in his Maelstrom Air Base story, and him getting mad at me multiple times. But he didn't, to his credit, never hung up on me. That guy, he took the interview, he answered my questions, I made him mad, and he stuck it out. And so that's an episode I got to release soon. So yeah, more is coming.
Nice, good to hear, man. We need as many people that have done the hard work and have really learned the facts, the deep facts, to stick around as much as possible, as hard as it is. So we thank you. Thank people that like you that stick around year after year. Appreciate it.
Sure. Ismary Sosa. Go ahead. Yep, you're on the air. West of the Rockies, east of the Rockies, west of the Rockies. What did Art Bell used to say? Ismary Sosa, you can go ahead. You're muted.
Hi. Thank you for hosting. I wanted to know, not so UFO related, but maybe UFO related, piggybacking off the previous question. Heard you had a son. Congratulations on being a dad. It's really an honor. I'm 27 and trying to get in the mind space and the monetary space of having a child. And I was just wondering, as we're going into this new year, what are your hopes for your child's future and his generation? What do you hope to see during the time that he grows to be an adult? What do you wish to see happen in that time frame?
Well, yeah, I guess for me, I just, it's a small, your world shrinks. For me, at least, my world shrunk when I had kids, and it becomes very microcosmic, and you're thinking about the specific DNA in that child and where you hope. You try to empower them. So with kids as young as mine, it's still a bunch of question marks. And being a parent is trying to figure out when to put a period on something or when to keep empowering that question mark. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I don't want a world gone mad. I don't want them to grow up in a world gone mad. I hope the world stops letting, stops empowering people that are spreading bullshit to be the most popular thing. I hope we move past a post-truth world and more and into a more kind of skeptical and philosophical world, because it really does seem that something has sped up when it comes to the truth taking a back seat to stupid, silly things. And I have to raise kids in that world and prepare them for that world. So I hope that by the time they're my age, that perhaps the pendulum has swung the other way. But these are all hopes, and these are all things I have no power over. So yeah, thanks for stressing me out, Ismarie.
Thank you for answering anyways, and I'm sorry it was stressful. I just feel like our thoughts and hopes have power. A little bit woo-woo maybe, but I believe that might be the case. So thank you for sharing.
Of course. I think on that note, World UFO. I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Hey, Stephen. Hey, thanks for hosting this. I think, events like this are really valuable just to have this back and forth discussion. A lot of good work out there. I had two quick questions. I know you got to wrap up. First, there's a much broader context of some of these reports and things that are happening, right? Both, nationally here in the U.S. right now, with like Tim Gallaudet, for example, or even Charles McCulloch's involvement, the much longer list than sort of the core that you focused on. Also internationally, there's an international group, not to mention the historical context. And I think, so just wonder if you had thoughts on that. And then the second piece was really, there's an insinuation out there that you're a paid disinformation agent. And I just wondered if you had any thoughts to share on that.
Yeah. I'm going to answer the second part first because it's fun. No, I'm not a paid disinformation agent. I think when I was a teenager and I was growing up, there was a point when I was watching the X-Files. I don't think you'll find a bigger X-Files fan than me, by the way. It's scary how big an X-Files nerd I was. Ridiculous. But I remember there was one season where I was like, you know what? Like, it would actually be kind of rad to be Smoking Man, to work, or at least work for Smoking Man. Like, to just know everything. That would be awesome. Like, maybe it's tiring to just constantly be wondering. It'd be awesome to be like this man in black smoking a cigarette in the basement and knowing everything. And just like alien fetuses are suddenly boring to you, but that was like so the idea that as an adult I could be that tickles me. I did work, and it's not a secret. I did it. I had a 12-month contract. The 12-month contract with the U.S. Department of State in 2009, working for I think it was called the International Information Program, IIP. And it was 5 of us, 5 video filmmakers, essentially. And we created stylized documentary type films, which kind of told America's story. And obviously, not the warts, just the good stuff. How great America is with renewable energy, and how great America is with X, Y, and Z, and how great America is with whatever. And our target demographic was, I wasn't in charge. I was just, I was a cog in a wheel hired to shoot and edit stuff. But I did pitch stories, and some of the stuff I created was really good. Like I did this one on it's a Chinese immigrant. His family immigrated from China, and all he wanted to do was comic books. And he became a comic book artist, and he created an award-winning comic book graphic novel called American Born Chinese, which documents his family's cultural immigration to America and the struggles. And I did this like little documentary video on him, and I love that video. It's like great. But that was like the kind of videos I was making. Did a bunch of videos on climate change, renewable energy. There was a guy who in Africa planted 1 million trees because floods had like destroyed the city and land he grew up in, and so he got funding to plant 1 million trees to replenish the land. I did documentary on that. But that's and I did that for 12 months, and then my contract was up, and I moved on to other things. But that's the extent of cigarette smoking man X-Files stuff I did for the government, and my contract was up in spring 2010. So no, I'm not a secret agent, unfortunately. And I forget the first part of your question, but time's up anyway. So I got to go, guys. But it's been awesome. I'm really kind of bummed out that no one yelled at me. I was thinking.
I'm a little upset you're not an undercover secret agent or whatever. That would have been hot. I don't know. A bunch of people are sending me messages, questions for you. I'm just gonna suggest they message you directly because, yeah. Or you need to do more spaces. I think you need to be around more because people are asking lots of questions. So.
Distance makes the heart grow fonder. All right, guys. It's been great. You guys have a good weekend and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good night.